I just thought I'd sort of kick off by saying how I met Osamah, which I sort of outlined at the back cover of the book, which is, I think, the only interesting part of the book and the only part really worth buying.
I agree.
For. Tony Ayres, who's a wonderful director and producer, and I'd always talked about working on something together, and he rang me up and said, would I like to do a film about set inside a Shiite community in Melbourne? And I'd been interested in looking at the current paranoia we have about anyone from any other country, and I was kind of interested in doing a sort of political film. But then I thought, I know nothing about this world at all.
You were scared you were going to get a fatwa in your head.
I'm still. My wife comes from a Muslim family, and I'm terrified of her. But I was really working out ways to politely reject this project, and I walked at Tony's place, and I met this lunatic here, who proceeded to tell me his life story, which is at once the most tragic and the funniest thing I'd ever heard. And I agreed to, in that moment, having gone there to reject it, to do the film with him for about $4.50. And
he was scared. He was just scared. There's a Muslim. He saw my name's Osamah. He's like, I got to accept this.
But what struck me was just how little we understand about this world that lives about 6 kilometres from here, off Sydney Road, and how brilliant this community is, how exciting, how vibrant, and how much it actually is as mad as us, madder, I think, and how much it actually can contribute to our culture if we just bother to listen to it. And within the framework of this stupid story of his life, which we'll come to, I started to realise this was the most political film you could do, which was just to humanise this world, to actually just show as realistic a picture, and it's not without criticism of this world either, but through the eyes of someone who totally gets it. Now, Osamah, you were born in Iran.
Yeah.
During the war.
Yeah, the Iran-Iraq War.
The Iran-Iraq War, yeah. There's been many.
Now
since.
you know. Now that, yeah. So which war? The Iran-Israel War, the Iran-Kuwait War, the Iran-Iraq War. The thing is, he's now so confident about it. I had to sit a whole day and explain what the Iran-Iraq War was. Now he's like, you were born during the war and assumes you guys know about it. But I'm here to talk about you.
Yeah. Describe your childhood in Iran. I mean, how different was it to here?
How different is it to here? It's the thing is, it's different, but it's also the same in a way. Okay, you don't have the bombs going over your head every day, but apart from that, it's the same. As in, your needs and wants are the same. You're still a child. You still want to play with toys. You still want to, have friends.
But you don't have religious police growing up here.
No, that's very true. So there are limitations, but that's the external world. The internal world is the same. So when you
describe the external world.
So the external world consists of piety police, and you hear the name piety police, and you go, piety police. They're nice. They're swell. They're not. They are actually, they come down on your heart. And for a teenager, I was growing up in Iran. It was, once you hit teen years, you want to start talking to girls. And not in Iran, not in an Islamic republic, that with piety police. And so what happens is, as soon as they see you talking to a girl, they come hard, they start belting the crap out of you. So then you try to find different ways to talk to girls. So suddenly, my cousins and I would sit and we're like, okay, how do we evade the piety police? And the piety police, by the way, are they're undercover. They work undercover, and they actually dress like thugs, so you couldn't pick them out.
Well, they are thugs, really, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah, they don't have to dress. But we found ways. You know, we found different ways.
You tell them the story about the hairdresser going to the barber shop in Iran.
Okay,
when
so
you were 14.
this is pre talking to girls. For us, all the women there are covered. All the women, they must be covered by law. So and so we didn't see women's hair, and that was the biggest thing we were after. Just seeing some hair. That was, like going to the strippers for us. So that's what we wanted to do. Just see some hair. Women's hair, of course. So we went to the barber, and at the barber, they always had these magazines, European magazines, with these hair models. Most of the barbers would just cross them out with black texture. But our local barber, he was naughty, and he just had them right there on display. And so we would frequently go to the hairdresser just to flip through that damn magazine. And when our name was called, it's not my turn to haircut, you go, invite our friends. And the good thing about it was that at school you had to have a shaved head. So you had to go to the barber anyway, all the time. So we'd go there and, should I just go the whole way? Yeah. And then, the pictures would be there, and you'd have the barber sheet over you, and you just suddenly start to, enjoy yourself. It's the only place. It was safer than doing it at home, I can tell you.
And you got picked up by the piety police.
That's right. The thing is, there was this, the local, these cops that they'd always catch us, getting up to no good. Well, it wasn't really no good. We didn't think it was no good, but to them it was sin and evil what we were doing. For instance, I'll tell you this one time how we got caught. We had, even the phone boxes are segregated. So you've got the female and male. So one way for us to go and talk to a girl was to use, so we'd put an out of order sign on the male one. So now we can use the female one without being questioned by cops, why are you using that one? So that's out of order, that's why I'm using it. We'd go in, this is 20 years ago, no mobile phones, none of that. We'd go in and punch in our home number. The next girl that walks in, we just give a little nod, and the teenage girls, they're into it as well. They want the same thing. They want to talk to us, often. And then they'd go in and press redial, and our number comes up, and they'd write it down. We'd swap numbers without any single person knowing. Or so we thought. Because there was always a damn cop, just absolutely precise. It's like, what is she doing? Why is she taking a... that girl hit redial 3 times, and then he'd go and question her, and poor girls, they'd start crying and pointing the finger straight away, and we'd run away and get caught and get, kicked inside out. But
you'd get beaten, wouldn't you?
Yeah, we'd get beaten, which wasn't fun.
I was in shooting something in Malaysia last year, and I remember seeing a group of women in the full black hijab taking photos of themselves. And I thought this was hysterical because they all looked identical. I mean, there wasn't a face to be seen, but they were... how did you recognise the age of the girl?
We have this thing in the Muslim sect that I'm from, which is temporary marriage.
Now, you have to describe this because this is...
Yeah, I'm like, come on, guys, you don't know what temporary marriage is?
Well, we do, but in a different way
So it was just a religious loophole for horny Muslim men. That's what it is. It's just to, in front.
It's not in the Quran, is it?
It's not.
It's a
no.
hadith.
It's kind of made up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what it is it makes it legal and not a sin for you to go and be with a girl officially, and you just kind of, like a taxi, put the meter on it. You just go, I'll marry you for 1 hour. You still have to have a dowry. You still need a witness. You need to do the whole thing. But so I marry you with a dowry of some fish and chips, and for a period of, if you're having sex, if you're lucky, then you go, how long am I going to last? 2 minutes. I'll marry you for 3 minutes. That's... and if you're not, then, you start thinking of how long you both kind of want to be temporarily married for.
And basically, it's not basically, they had brothels with what would be described as the imam in front of it.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a brothel. It's because it's
a brothel.
No, I don't think it's a brothel. It's a place where these girls work. Yeah, it does sound like a brothel, doesn't it? You go in and you kind of pick which girl, and the imam does the temporary marriage thing for you. But there are strict laws, like the same girl can't come around the same day again and all that sort of stuff. So,
that's very strict.
Yeah.
That's very onerous, isn't it? Yeah.
So then we try to go talk to girls and, get temporary marriage. And one of the hot spots for that was the shrine, the holy shrine. Because, again, nobody thinks that that's where you're going, But a sea of black, all these women are dressed in the whole black, and we just go in. And honestly, I did it. I was shit scared. I didn't really do it. Like, I wasn't never going to go through with it. But it's exciting, So you go in and you're just pulling at a woman's, the garb. Miss, would you like some temporary marriage? And most often than not, they just turn around and say, go away, I'm 70 years old. And, I think I ran into my grandmother once, It's, that happened way too many times, man. It just, because you don't know, because you go for the kind of the shorter ones, but they're really the older ones because they've got the hunch. So it was really hard, and then you get picked up by the cops again, and then you're like, how many more times can I get the living daylight kicked out of me?
And all the time you're doing, how long? What do you remember of the war?
I remember the last year, pretty much everything from it, because
your brother was killed.
So that's what I remember from then on, because and it was just by fortune that I survived and he didn't, because we were at a hospital, and then the siren went off. It just goes that war siren that's probably familiar even in a non-war zone like Australia. You just
no, we don't get attacked very often.
Yeah, but it's that sound, right? So you go to the war bunker underneath, and then you hear the shelling and everything else, and one of the wings was hit, and he happened to be there. So
did you live in fear the whole time? I mean,
the thing is, when you're a kid growing up in that environment, you don't know what fear is. You don't. Like I was more scared from scorpions. Like I'm like, there's a scorpion on the ground. We're getting the broom and we're kicking it out of the way, and there's bombs going off. But because that was normal, this is you get terrified of a spider. So you don't. I never thought about it until the war ended, and then there was a 1 year where there's still landmines going off and people just stepping on landmines in our city. And it's like, they'd cordon off areas, don't go here. And some kids just were curious and they'd go there, and you'd hear about it the next day, or you'd see their bodies on the streets. And then we liked to play like normal kids, but there was no playgrounds left. So there were all these abandoned tank carcasses, really, the shells of tanks and helicopters that have been gunned down. And we'd go inside them and play. but there were landmines there as well, and so it was kind of, you're always trying your luck. But as a kid, you don't know. They say there's landmines there. What does that mean? You even see kids dying, but it's like you can't absorb it. Then after 2 or 3 years after the war ended, some of the POWs started coming back, and there was the exchange of POWs between Saddam Hussein's army and the Ayatollah army from Iran. And then it started going quiet, and then it's like, oh, what the hell happened? My uncle, he used to work in the commando units in the army, and they used to, disarm tanks. That was their job, living on the edge, and it was done through a technique where they wait for it, because tanks are very fast. Like I didn't know that as a kid, because I always saw them slow. They can just go, and so they wait for it to reach a hill, and then it really slows down, and they place the mine in. There's a socket, and then if he's lucky, he survives, and the mine goes off a few meters up, and they disarm the tank. They go in, one night he goes in, and his hand starts. That's how he recalls it. His hand just starts to shake for the first time, and he can't put the mine in the socket. So now he's got a live mine in his hand, and he's thinking, this is going to kill me, and this thing goes off within like seconds. So he's like, I'm just going to take hostages with me. He goes inside the tank, and he's yelling. And one thing I should say is my family is Iraqi by origin, but I was born in Iran. So my dad was an Iraqi, but he had to fight for the Iranians. And his brother was also an Iraqi, and he fought for the Iraqis. So I had an uncle fighting for the Iraqis. I had my dad fighting for the Iranians. And that was the whole question growing up. Who's the good guys, the mustache or the beards? Because Saddam's army had the mustaches, and the Iranian army had the beards. So he goes in, and then he sees this lieutenant colonel who's a big deal in Iraq. He's like, I've got him hostage, and there's yelling and whatever, and they don't shoot him because he's got a mine in his hand. And it turns out to be that lieutenant general used to be his high school teacher from Iraq. It's madness.
Yeah, it is madness, yeah.
And they start shooting the breeze, having a chat. Hey, how you doing, Adnan? How are you? How's, your wife? Is she well? Like things that, when your mind can't fathom it. It's just a heart thing. And after the war ended, a few years later, that uncle, I remember, he started delivering, because he got hit on his leg and he couldn't work. He started working as a meat delivery. He had a truck fridge, and he started taking that. And I was riding with him once, and he just seemed just very kind of placid and no emotion. And we're driving along, and he said, Osama, you know what I feel like sometimes? And we're driving along the mountain cliffs of beautiful, mountainous terrains in Iran. And he said, sometimes I feel like driving even closer out of the edge just to get that feeling back that I'm the buzz. Because he used to get that buzz, I think in that movie, The Hurt Locker, the tagline was, war is a drug. And I saw it with my eyes, and these guys were addicted to that.
What about your father, though? Your father's an incredible bloke. Osama's father was the Shiite Imam, the head of the, Victorian.
The Shiite community in Melbourne, yeah.
And had a doctor of philosophy.
Yeah.
Doctor of literature
Arabic
as well.
literature, yeah.
Super brilliant. What made him leave post-war Iran?
Oh, what made him leave Iran?
Was it he was...
Well, as in, that's the thing, as in he was a cleric, but he was very progressive for them anyway. I mean, you guys might think, oh, he's wearing a turban. How can a turban be progressive? But there are, of course, levels as you get with different sects of other religious dominations. But with him, he was an Iraqi. We were always Arabs in Iran. So it didn't matter that he served for them in the war. It didn't matter that, we just had these green cards that really all we could do was get clean water with. You couldn't, he was teaching at university, but the pays were, not great, and you could never own a house. You can't. So it was always very tenuous, you could easily lose your job, everything else. And he only taught Arabic and religion because he had a PhD in Arabic literature. So the oppression started to wear us down. And, I was talking about that as a teenager and all the cops coming to us, and that was part of it. And you could imagine that on a wider scale. And the fact that he knew I was going to get killed by the cops if we would stay there for another year.
So what was it like coming to Australia? How old were you? You were 14, weren't you?
Yeah. 13.
You come from this bizarre world.
Yeah.
And you hit here.
Well, let me put it this way. I studied the Quran very well. And in it, God describes heaven. And when I came here, I'm like, I think this is what he's talking about. Because I went to the beaches. And I saw the description of heaven. I'm like, I think this is what the man upstairs is talking about, because definitely wasn't in Iran. Yeah. But it was very. My first memory was coming here. I didn't know the ABC. I just started learning the ABCs, the alphabet. So on the plane, I'm going A, B, C.
I should point out too that in the time that I worked with Osamah on the script, he taught himself French to my daughter's a French linguist, and she said he speaks it perfectly. He taught himself off the internet. You speak 6 languages?
5.
5. I would have thought you would have added another one by now. So carry on.
Yeah, so it was...
So English is your 4th language?
No, English is my third language, yeah. It was... I'm going through the ABCs, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I'm doing it. And I'm like, yeah, and it was a time where I was starting to learn capital letters from small letters, and because we don't have them in Arabic, we have different forms, and I'm really trying to get into it. And then we land, and apart from the fact that I get a huge shock by a woman in jeans, like a woman in jeans. And I'm like, Dad, look, she's wearing jeans. And then my eyes, because I'm only this short, and then my eyes went ahead, and all these women are wearing jeans, and it was crazy. Apart from that shock, it's like, yes, son, a lot of women here wear jeans. I'm like, but they're women. Well, because mum's in this whole proper attire until today.
But that must be a real problem. That problem manifests in the Muslim community with attitude to women here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you get around? You've got 2 daughters.
Yeah.
How do you get around all this? How compliant is Islam with a Western civilization?
Honestly, I think all this stuff is very personal and it's about... we talk in the Western society about freedom and freedom of speech, and let's draw the prophet of Islam like this. Well, let us wear the burqa. Don't argue about it. If that's what you want from us, like why? They say the burqa is oppressing a woman. Well, if a woman is deciding to wear it, who are you to tell them she wants to wear it? And I can guarantee you there are women who genuinely want to wear it. My mum wears the whole hijab. She wouldn't leave the house without it. And then there are people who say, oh, you're being oppressed. It's like, no, that's how I enjoy. It's actually, that's how she is. That she actually finds comfort in it. She finds discomfort in people telling her that she's feeling uncomfortable in it. So
what about your sisters, though?
It's different. One of my sisters wears the hijab. One of them kind of doesn't very loosely. But again, that comes to personal choice. If it's being oppressed, I'm against that, of course. Like, I would never go up to my sister and say, you have to do this. But if she wants to do it, I wouldn't say, as a woman, you have the liberty not to, because she knows that. She lives here, know.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about the hijab. So it's a debate that's had all over, especially in Europe and in France and whatever, and from Muslims it's a non-issue, but it's like, the Adam Goods thing when he did the spear dance, and Eddie Maguire comes and talks about it. It's like, Eddie, you're white. You can't talk about an Aboriginal issue. So this is the same. It's if Muslims are debating it within themselves, I would be more comfortable than the parliament arguing it for Muslim women, because Muslim women can take care of themselves. There are a lot
until
of
recently, the Minister for Women was a man, which I thought was kind of interesting. What I find incredible then is what happened to you in Australia, which is what our film is about. You've got the weight of your father, now the most respected man in the Shiite and adored man in the Shiite community, and you want to please him and you want to be a good Muslim. How did you stuff it up?
Well, look at me, man.
Yeah.
I mean, look how I'm working with now. I've totally stuffed it up.
How the mighty
now.
have fallen.
Yeah. It's the oldest son always gets that's probably in every culture. You have to, it comes with that whole expectation, and the funny thing about us as Iraqis is, everyone has to be a doctor. There's nothing else. You're either a doctor or a taxi driver. There's no middle ground. Because if you can't be a doctor, you'll just end up driving a cab. There's no, hey, that's the expectation I'm talking about. I'm doing a broad stroke, obviously, but it's true. It's like you're going to be an engineer, doctor, all those things. And if you say anything else other than those, lawyer kind of jobs, people just look at you weirdly. And they're the ones driving a cab. Like, it's like, but I think they look at you weirdly like, why do you want to end up like us, man? So forget being an artist, forget being an athlete, forget teaching, forget all that stuff. So I knew I had to be a doctor. Dad's got 3 PhDs. The man couldn't stop at one. He's got 3. So
What was the third one? I didn't know he had 3.
Yeah, in Islamic jurisprudence, because he was a cleric. That was the thing, now I have to go out and get 4 PhDs, It's like, you got to outdo your older man. So, and he ran a congregation of about 1,000 people, week in, week out. And they always would come to his office and all these problems that they have, marital issues mainly, divorcing their wives 3 times, because in Islam, if you divorce your wife 3 times...
You just have to say it, don't you?
Yes, if you say, I divorce you, and it's 3 times, you can't go back to the woman again. Because most men get angry quickly. They go, I divorce you. And they're like, oh, no, shit, I don't. But that's 1. 2nd strike, 3rd strike, done. You can't go back to the woman. And so he would solve a lot of
What
those.
happens when your wife, this is just a hypothetical, says it to you 1,000 times?
It's like, honey, let's eat some
it's
baklava.
It's not good, is it?
Yeah.
I'll phone her after this.
So they come in and they're always like, oh, so, you're going to lead us. You're going to lead the community and become a great doctor. And
Well, you would have had the whole weight of this great man on you all the time.
all the time. It was because my dad was never called by his first name. He was called... So my name's Osamah. He was called Abu Osamah, which means the father of Osamah. In some cultures, they call... also the father is mentioned, like Bin Laden. I have to mention that because that's... you guys would understand that. Bin Laden means the son of Laden. So again, that whole son, father is very big. So he's never called by his first name. He's always called Abu Osamah. And when people see me... Before saying, how are you, they ask, how's your dad? How's your father? Or how is the revered cleric, actually? And it's like a lot of weight because, you'd come from soccer training or whatever and, you're on a phone and maybe there's a girl you're talking to. It's like, and you see an Iraqi man, it's like, you go, you suddenly see your father in front of you, you see the whole community, and suddenly, you freak out that you're doing the biggest sin on earth, and you hang up. And so I had to be the doctor.
How did that go?
I'm an actor now, playing a doctor. Well,
You
first
sat
of
the
all,
GAMSAT exam,
well,
didn't you?
I had to get, well, no, I had to get enough marks, first of all, to have a chance of entering university. And, I'll be honest, I only got 68 point something. The subjects that I did in Year 12 were physics, chemistry, biology, all the subjects that one does to become a doctor. I wasn't interested in any of them. So I'm even surprised I got 68. But I was really interested in English. So I scored quite well in English. And I was even more determined. I'd been in Australia 5 years. And I'm like, I'm going to outdo all these Aussie boys. So it was just a determination thing. I did really well in Arabic because that was my native tongue. And I secretly did some art subjects. And I did really well in them.
Mm-hmm.
So that bumped my score because I failed all the other subjects. I would turn up to chemistry and I just remember one word from that, and that's titration. And I don't even know what that is until today. And there was back titration, which is like a harder version of titration. Yeah. And then there was CO and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And and it was too much.
So let's just cut the chase. Yeah. You failed. You stiffed out on this exam.
That's right.
So you just went to your father and you said, "That's it. I've failed. I'm not going to do." Is that what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm defying the community. Yeah. No, I couldn't do that because there was a ceremony at the mosque. That they're going to do the whole thing.
Announce all the scores for everyone there.
Yeah. So
the son of the Shiite cleric of Melbourne goes in having bombed.
So I sort of mumbled to someone that I got in the 90s. And it has a ripple effect. Before you know it, everyone's on their phones going, the son of the cleric's a doctor. Is a doctor, present tense. And, there's guys coming saying, are you going to fill us out prescriptions? And honest to God, once you graduate, man, I need some opiates, hook me up. And
would you ever treat a Jew?
That's right. Those questions as well, would you treat a Jew? Is that what you're going to do? And, give us some, all those pills and whatever, how many Valiums can you write? Like, I'm not a doctor, but I had to, just go with it, basically.
Yeah, you went with it. How far did you go with it?
A while, which is in the book as well.
Yeah. How long exactly? Let's just put
roughly around a year.
Yeah, roughly around a year, didn't you? You went to university every day, didn't you, for a year, pretending to do medicine.
That's
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, something like that, because you got to commit, man. And I was...
and at the back of your mind, what was the plan?
Nothing. I was just... And that came from my acting background where you commit to a character. You just have to stay committed. And I'm like, this is it. It's an act. And I'm playing a role of this kid who's going to uni, got into medicine. So I was really good with computers. So I forged all these documents that says I'm in Melbourne Uni and all this stuff. And but I had a vague plan. I had a loose plan of actually studying my ass off, really studying hard, studying science, get through medical science. And after medical science, sitting the GAMSAT exam and then going to medicine through the back titration way, it didn't work out that way.
No, it didn't work out. You got sprung, didn't you?
Yeah, and how that happened, there is and of course, all through this year, all this stuff's happening. It's all in the book if you've read it. But the scores, you can put your student number and your date of birth. So all these Muslim guys went in and put my date of birth to know if I really got in the 90s. But my date of birth on my passport license is different to my actual date of birth because our documents were lost in a war.
Osama's actually 61
That's
years old.
right, exactly. That's why I was pulling at the 7-year-old women all that time. You know, I was their age. So no one knew my real date of birth. And one conversation I was having with this guy who was out to get me, and I'm like, I wasn't actually born in 82. I was born in 83. And that's all he needed, because he went and put 1 1, 1 2 1, 3 1, 4 1, 5 1, 6 1, up until he hit 10th of March. So he didn't really have to work that hard. 70 numbers in, and he was.
And then what happened?
Oh man.
Yeah.
It all just came crumbling down. I just wanted to be swallowed by.
But in that time you were doing medicine, you'd met someone.
Yes, met a girl who I fell in love with, and but at the same time I was arranged to be married as well. And it all came on the back of that stupid lie that I told, because they said, he's got into medicine, he's going to be a doctor, he needs a wife, and
And next afternoon it was arranged.
And it was arranged within one day, because they said, because they are, the more successful student you are, the quicker you get married, because it's like a prestige, to get married. And I hadn't thought of that. And I'm like, oh, so do I now tell them, hey, actually, I'm not a doctor, but I couldn't, by then it was the committed phase, and all sorts of stuff happened there. Again, it's all in the book, so it's and in our film as well.
Tell me about the writing process of which I was a part. You can.
Well, the writing process of the book was...
Because you hadn't written much beforehand when we got together.
And of course, compared to someone like yourself, I've written zero.
That's what I really want to get onto.
I've written a couple of short films. I've developed a TV series. I'll walk in, and of course, Andrew's sitting there, and I've seen his work before, and I'm just shaking, but pretending to be cool. Working with you, as you know, was just the most pleasant experience in the world. And I think you just made it so easy. So I didn't have to, I knew about screenwriting in terms of structure and substance and whatever, but to actually do it, it's a feature film.
Yeah, I've got to say, I found it an absolutely fascinating process, because I often do collaborate now, largely because I'm so old that I don't have any ideas left, but also because I love working with someone who, as you've heard, comes from an entirely different world. And it's a great way of excavating it. The writing process is completely a personal thing. You have to show your dirty linen and dirty underwear to someone straight off. And it was fascinating to go into a world and then try and work out how we shaped it.
Yeah.
And we went through a number of processes with it. But what kept amazing me with Osamah is, we'd go break for a lunch, or we'd go and have a walk, or talk about football or something. And in the process, he would come up with some anecdote, like, for example, his brother being killed, and you go, we aren't writing about this at the moment. Why don't we fuse this script with some of the other stuff? And it constantly, he has a very joyous view of the world, Osamah, and I'm ever so slightly negative. But it was a fantastic to go into this world and to pull apart, and to also understand in a very different way. There's two types of Islam. There's the Islam of the desert, which is pretty much your world, and there's the Islam of the market, which is my wife's world, which is she's Turkish. But it was really interesting to see where cultural, why...
The nuances
and where the similarities are, and where all these things were.
Yeah. And also the whole process as well was, we're leaving stuff in, and screenplay, you're talking 90 minutes. Well, right now we're sitting on 3 hours. We've got a meeting later on how to trim an hour off, and we're into production next month. But the thing about it was, we're talking about like books and screenplays. That's what was interesting about it, because I started writing the book after we wrote, because normally, the book comes out and then they adapt a film based on the book. We were already deep into doing our kind of screenplay. I think we finished the first draft. And what I found interesting is how sometimes in films first you can't have everything, and how some things just won't work to hold that structure in a film, whereas they'll work brilliantly in a movie. Like a big part of it's getting deported from America. In the book, it's the whole, it's a chapter about going to America, doing Saddam Hussein the musical. It's a whole other story.
What happened in there? We've got 45 seconds to tell people what happened.
Yeah, we're out of time. But the thing is, I go there. My name's Osama. I barrack for the bombers. And I've got a membership card saying "Proud Bomber" in my pocket. And the Americans don't find that funny,
No. And they couldn't believe that a Shiite cleric had written a musical about Saddam Hussein.
Yeah, because my father wrote the play. So that stuff, we have the musical in the film, but only one scene in the airport where we're getting interrogated, whereas that was like a 26-hour interrogation by Homeland Security. And
do you get the paranoia Australia has about the Muslim community? Like I was looking at it, there's been 2 acts of terrorism on our soil, one of which I would say was just a psychopath, and one of which was a 15-year-old boy. There were 95 murders of women by husbands in the last, violent men here. And how have we got to a polemic? How's the polemic come this disparate? Is it because you are wearing black and you're hidden in a world, or is it?
No, I think honestly, I wouldn't put the blame. There's a lot of Muslims who come out and they try to do the right thing, but the onus is as well on politicians and policymakers and and the likes to start telling people. Someone says, "Hey, we've got a terrorism." For Abbott to come out and says, "Yeah, we've got a massive terrorist problem." No, we've got a violence against women issue problem. Like just tell the reporter to shut up. And get on with the real issues. And of course that's what happens. It's what sells, right? And right wing is so. The left is always like, "Oh yes, that's a great tree. Why are you cutting that tree down?" And you go and you sit under the tree and it's great and you're having a shade. Whilst the right wing is they're just going off, let's bring back guns and let's do this and let's do that. Meanwhile, all this stuff's just passing through the Senate very quietly, and then you sit here and ask me, do we have a problem? By the time already there is a problem, So it's all grassroots stuff. So of course we have a role to play in this as Muslims, and every Muslim is accountable. But I don't think I should sit on a tram and say, "Hey, I'm a good Muslim boy." I think we just look at each other as human beings, and that solves the problem.
Which is why we did the film.
Absolutely, have a dialogue.
Are there any questions? Because I'm at 0-0. Does anyone?
That might.
You'll have to wait for a microphone to appear. Hello, Janet. How are you?
Osamah, you mentioned war being like a drug, addictive. Is there any point in the West constantly getting involved in Middle East conflicts militarily or even diplomatically? Do we just inflame the situation?
Well, there is a point. They get to make money. They get to, get oil.
But
also.
we fix it, though. I mean,
absolutely.
Our
absolutely.
invasion of Iraq has worked out tremendously well, I think.
Yeah, Saddam's gone. It's great. ISIS is in. It's. And now we're going to get rid of ISIS, and God knows, just God have mercy on our souls who comes next. But, the interference is... look, I've got to say the Middle Eastern system is also flawed because you've got dictatorships, you've got authoritarian rule, you've got... like in Iraq, for example... we don't understand democracy, and I say that with respect to all the people trying to run the government. I say trying to, because there was 40 years of a dictatorship, so a whole generation. So suddenly the death to the dictator, Saddam, falls, and you've got the Americans there, and they're trying to install a leader, and they have to find someone who, you know, appeases them, and vice versa. And where did they study democracy? Where did they study politics? Where all their lives, all they've known is oppression. So do they come out and give liberty to everyone? Of course not, because they're going to get mobbed, and so the violent cycle continues. There's a great film that I saw recently called The Dictator, or something like, The Dictator, which was set in a fictional world and about this grandfather and grandson. The grandfather happens to be a dictator, and an uprising happens in a country, and it's set in like Bulgaria or something. And it was an Iranian, Mohsen Makhmalbaf made film, but outside in Europe. And it talked about the cycle that this kid's going to become and how when a government gets overthrown, it gets overthrown violently, and that's the problem. So when Americans come, they do it violently. So of course the reactions, you know, physics, action, reaction. I passed that question. Is going to be that. So no, I think you let each country, like, I don't come to your house and tell you how to, like, I might have an opinion about your couch, Andrew, but you know, I don't come and bring a new couch for you, you know, and just very simple stuff. Like, you don't go into someone's backyard and tell them how to grow their plants, even if they're growing cactus. Maybe they like cactus, you know.
Any other questions at all? Down the front.
I just wanted to ask you, you know, the question about democracy, because when you brought up the situation with Adam Goodes and Eddie Maguire, and just looking at from you know, where I live and how I see the world, and you know, my idea of democracy is that we have freedom of speech. So, you know, if someone has an action, it doesn't matter where it is, we have freedom of speech to comment on that or have an opinion on that.
Not according to that CNN anchor. Was it CNN or Fox News? Did you hear that? That Fox News anchor came out and they were debating the gun violence, and one of his guys, he was saying, oh, well, in Australia, you know, they stopped guns and now they don't have massacres there. And he's like, yeah, but in Australia there is no freedom of speech. People actually go to jail for saying what's on their mind.
Yeah,
Like
so that's my point,
yeah.
you know, from... We seem to have a lot of, you know, political things now, political correctness, political this, and it seems that, you know, from where I'm sitting, we've all got these prejudices. It doesn't matter where we come from, and that seems to be the problem, that we're all not able to have an opinion about things. And I just wanted to see what you felt about that.
That all comes from not understanding one another. And I don't want to say ignorance, because some people aren't ignorant. They just, you know, some people are very well educated, in fact. But it's just seeing the world through someone else's eyes. And they could, like, I actually go into towns within this country and I see new things, you know, and... you know, you go, oh wow, Toowoomba's kind of not Melbourne, is it? You know, it's that thing all stems from not understanding.
I also think that we're subject to so much white noise at the moment that there's actually no prosecution of an idea, so that an idea is never run through a filtration system. I agree with you that, you know, there's an anti-abortionist who was stopped and things. I don't know how... I'm not going to agree with them, but I don't know if I would stop them. But at the same time, we have a media that really doesn't pull anything apart. We're subject to the most extraordinary ephemera now. We're deluged with it. And at a certain point, you would love people to be held accountable for an opinion, and the idea, or whatever the opinion was, to be genuinely prosecuted so that people understood it. Never is. It's been fascinating. I was talking to Andrew Denton the other day, and we were talking about doing a program where you track what someone said a year ago and find out how accurate it was, and just to have a truth and lie test on things, or to what degree is it a lie, to what degree is it a truth. It is so easy to fabricate an argument now. So at the same time as not wanting to stop opinion, you actually get a hell of a lot of it. And I don't know that we have the facility anymore to process it.
Yeah, and it comes in all the, and what stories, the whole censorship thing and whatever, like that with the David Hicks, that photo that they kept showing with his RPG and whatever, and then it turned out to be, there was part of a bigger photo, and it was turned out to be a posy thing. And yes, you don't always pose with an RPG, but I've posed with an RPG in Iran because it's just something you do there, but it's not.
The poor Queen was getting vilified for giving a Nazi salute when she was 3.
Yeah.
I think we used to do that all around the playground.
We used to sing, Hail the Imam Khomeini, and other people hail Saddam Hussein all over the world. There's chants and whatever, but it is like on one of our great TV programs, A Current Affair, the other day was this. Argument with this guy. He had the beard, so he had the classical look, the classical terrorist look, right? I can say that, I'm Muslim. And there was another guy, the classical moderate Muslim without the beard. It is what the media loves, and it was almost like it was shot by 2 different cameras. And like that guy just looked dark and angry, and if anyone understood Arabic, the moderate guy was abusing the crap out of the other guy about his mum, about what he'd do to his sister. And then that guy couldn't take it anymore. And I'm not condoning what he did. He punched him in the face. After like the 700th time, he kept saying, please, the brother, don't say this. This is not good. This is not in line. And then the guy was clearly provoking him. And then it was like, boom, 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 and then, Lakemba, it's again, and I don't know why he's got an American accent as well. And that's the thing. It's like, well, we only seeing half truths, and a lot of omissions, and that's where it gets dangerous because we just don't know the full story anymore.
Yeah, I remember talking to Michael Palin once, and he said one of the things he loves about travel is it's almost impossible to hate anyone. Yeah. Once you've met people, you don't totally hate them. Yeah. And I've travelled widely over many years. There's not a nationality I actually hate.
No, and the thing is, we grew up in Iran. We thought what the white majority or the and it's fair enough. You don't know much about what Qom is. Qom is the biggest religious city in the Shiite world. So that's like the Vatican for us. But, most likely you wouldn't have heard about it. But we didn't know much about Sydney either. We knew kangaroos. We watched Skippy, the bush kangaroo, dubbed. That's what we thought Australia was. We thought Australia was Skippy, the bush kangaroo. So when someone comes and says, do you ride camels genuinely? And they're earnestly asking how many camels Dad had, I kind of don't blame them. I don't think they're being politically incorrect or whatever. Because at one time, I thought you guys just went out instead of dogs with kangaroos on leashes, because we're so far. You do, yeah.
There's one more question. I think we've got time for one more quick one.
Thank you. I'm just curious I just think you can give an anecdotal response, a personal one. What do you judge the effect in your circles, and I'm assuming you're not a radicalised Muslim.
If you're looking at me, I don't have any circles.
No, not you. Sorry, the guest. When you have the sort of opportunistic exploitation of the appearance of that Muslim gentleman on Q&A, which is then used as an opportunity to bash the ABC, what's the debate? I mean, and the feeling in what we might call the moderate Muslim community about being used in this fashion time and again, what effect do you think that has?
I didn't quite hear the end of that, sorry.
I'm saying the
talking-
use by the government of that incident to bash the ABC, but it's always it's the repeated use of, say, one Muslim person to open up a whole other raft of issues and angles.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the dangers of screenwriting is that we're reductive. You know, that you reduce an argument to a couple of cogent images. And I just had Osamah play a terrorist in Jack Irish as punishment. But the hardest thing in the world is nuance. The hardest thing to grab is nuance. And what the media constantly does is behave reductively. It will quarantine an argument down to one tiny little idiot or this, and this will represent everything. And I find it, Tony Jones is a friend of mine, but I thought it was an odd choice to have that guy in the audience, because it was almost like it was inviting this kind of reaction. My sense with it, and it's certainly not from Tony or from anyone, my sense was that they actually wanted to get a debate going.
And the thing
they wanted
is,
to promote but the trouble is we don't have the facility to follow it up. I mean, the entire reason we're doing this book, I'm supposed to promote this book in the last 10 seconds. It's terribly good. But I don't know how you get around this except by humanising everyone, saying that we've never got it right, and nor have they.
Yeah.
And
who has?
Yeah, who has?
No one has.
Our entire history of the Middle East has been one of misunderstanding. You know, from the Crusades on, it hasn't stopped. And it would be really good just to start talking to people as humans and try and work it round, rather than reducing it to, Waleed Ali versus, mad lunatic.
Yeah,
here.
and even that kid, as
I love Waleed Ali, by the way.
It was, I think it's again a mob culture of, I honestly don't think the ABC thought that kid was way out of line. It was only when the media started bashing them, that's when they issued the apology, because he could have just made the apology straight away.
Yeah.
Yes, he kind of stopped him, but people say crap all the time, and I'm entitled to
Your
opinion.
point.
You
Yeah.
go to a footy game and you're going to hear some nasty comments about the other team. I know sometimes, it's the fever and whatever, but still people say, they say some stuff from their heart. And if you're going to just stop that, that's going to cause 100 other kids to erupt and go, why, how dare you? And he was making actually a valid point, honestly, about it, you are angering the kids out there. And he said, what, are you saying that, now we're going to promote terrorism? What? That's what kids do. If they get oppressed, not just kids, anyone, you put us in a bubble as human beings and you oppress us so much, you rebel so much that you go even further than what you really want to.
Zero.
So we wanted to end it with a joke, man, just so people can have a laugh and they can. Can I end it with a little story at the airport that I had?
Go for it.
And then
Okay.
Is that okay? I love this story because it's an airport story, and that's where I get a lot of my trouble. But this one's not the one in America. I'll leave that one a lot longer. I'm at the airport and I'm coming. We're talking about how Muslims and we got to kind of sort ourselves out. And I'm at the airport and I really need to, get on this plane. I've got a connecting flight. My father's passed away. His corpse is in the getting loaded in the airplane, and to bring him back to Australia. This is a whole journey that.
First chapter of his really brilliant book.
And then I'm standing there, and if I miss this flight, then all the work that I'd done until then, it all comes crashing down. And this Saudi guy, and he's got his 4 wives with him, because in those countries, you're allowed. Here, you just call them mistresses. There, they call them wives. It's the same thing. Why
did you point at me when you said mistress?
Because, polygamy, what's polygamy? It's just the same as, a guy having a mistress, but he calls her his second wife. So the thing is, he's standing there and they're really slowing us down. And this is Iran. This is a Saudi man. He's speaking Arabic. They're speaking Persian. One's not understanding the other. And he's got all this excess baggage. Like, his wives have bought the entire city. They had 500 kilos of excess luggage between them. And he was really filthy with them. Like, he's just, pulling his hair, and I'm like, come on, just pay. I know it's a lot of fee, flying Emirates, 500 kilos. They're like, this is how much you have to pay. You can't take that fridge with you, And he's just got all this stuff. And it's really, by then, we're there literally 40 minutes while they're trying to sort this massive problem out, because a lot of luggage how they're going to put in a plane. And one of his wives is just sitting there, and the other one's yelling and whatever. And then he recognized one. He points at her, and she's in a whole full burqa, and he goes, "Oh, you went and bought the entire city. I told you, don't max out my credit card. You." And she just lifted her burqa, and he's like, "Oh, not you. You." He just, you, and then they start, and then the women are starting to yell at him and swear at him in Arabic, and I couldn't believe it, because you talk about women's right, and women are oppressed. I'm like, these girls, go you girls, they're giving it to him. They're like, why did you marry me if you couldn't afford it? And one's giving him attitude, and the other one's, I'll show you when we get to Saudi Arabia, I'm not coming to your house for a week, and I'm going to sleep at mum's. And all these women are fighting with each other. It was hilarious. And he ended up paying in the end. So that was a little experience at the airport that otherwise would not make any sense to a foreign not understanding. You see it and it might just be yelling and fighting.
I've travelled with my wife quite often. Let's finish it.
Thank you both so much. I think we like being at the airport and slowed down. I think we all enjoyed being slowed down a little bit by you guys today and the fascinating conversation. Thank you for coming, and have a great day.